Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Happy Gameweek 32 Eve. Happy free hit chip week for those on it. I'm joined by Luke Williams, who is on his free hit. I'm also on my free hit. And we've got 40-ish minutes before the deadline. How you feeling, Luke?
I'm all right. I'm okay. I've not been stressing too much this week, but as usual, as the deadline gets closer, like start playing around with the team this morning,
Mm.
and it looks completely different to how it did when I woke up already. So I know how those usually go, and I think you experienced pretty similar
Oh,
again recently, didn't you? So
God,
your
don't.
calling card.
Don't. I know normally we do a bit on sort of previous weeks. I'm sure most of you watching know that I benched Mr. Ollie Watkins at the weekend on a last minute move, which cost me 11 points. Which, yeah, I mean, it happens all the time. I can't think of a time in which I've made a last minute move and it's paid off. So if anyone's making any last minute free hit decisions, let me know if they do pay off at the end. Let us know your teams in the chat. Get your questions in as well. We'll do a bit of a Q&A kind of at the start. Apologies for anyone who's expecting Mr. Mark Southerns. Him, like his work life, his computer has now had a meltdown. Apparently, and he's out of action for a while. He was supposed to be joining us, but I have got his free hit team, which is very different to ours. Luke, we've got nine of the same players, which is very dull. But Mark has gone more rogue. So
Wow.
yeah, so we'll talk a bit about that. I guess he feels like he has to, given where
Yeah,
he is.
makes sense.
Yeah, and we'll touch on that. He's got a different captain choice, not going for Salah as well. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. I didn't realize he was going that
I
brave,
know.
but
Yeah, we'll touch on that in a sec.
how's his computer blown up, by the way? Isn't it like
I don't know.
37 grand worth of
It
equipment?
happens all the time. He's always saying something's not working or something's frozen or whatever. He spent so much money on that
Doesn't he
computer.
work at like an IT
Yeah,
company? He needs to sort it
yeah,
out.
yeah. But he works, within the video game industry. He's got all of the best stuff. It just shows you can have all the gear and no idea. Much like this podcast, really.
Accurate
Yeah,
description.
yep. We've got loads to cover. Before we do, this deadline stream is sponsored by Manscaped. You will all, I'm sure, be familiar with Manscaped from these streams. It's essentially male grooming products. I think my dad is finally starting to understand exactly what this means when I talk about it. They've got great range of kind of stuff on there. They've got your ball shavers, Luke. They've got your ear trimmers as well. Because someone pointed out to me that I'm starting to get ear hairs because I'm getting a bit older now. So that comes in the package. They've got this like cream stuff that you put on your balls and that makes them smell nice. Yeah. Lovely.
Sounds lovely, yeah.
Sounds lovely.
Sounds...
Yep, and it's a very nice scent actually, and loads of other stuff as well. So do check them out. Check out Manscaped. There's a 20% off code in the description, which if you just enter in BlackBox, you get 20% off. And there's a load of free gifts that they're giving away as well. Get them in time for summer. And make sure that your private areas are looking and smelling the best that they can be. I'm so like desensitized to these now. I remember when we first did one, I was like, I don't know if I can
Yeah,
talk
I'm
about
I'm not
this.
quite there yet.
Yeah,
Whose balls have you been sniffing?
multiple men.
Just checking. Not, I was hoping you were just going to say your own, but you didn't go there.
Oh, yeah, that would have been a
You
much better
meant
answer. Yeah. Is this appropriate for 5:50 on a Friday? Maybe. Hopefully, lots. I've got a beer or a finished work, and you've got or even a non-alcoholic beer. Luke and I were talking about those before the stream. But yeah, it's party time, isn't it? It's always party time heading into a deadline, a Friday night deadline. So relax. The weekend's here. And we'll talk. I think we're going to go straight into our free hit teams, just so people know kind of what we're dealing with. Then we've got a few stats and things to look at on our predictions for the week. This is my team. I'm afraid mine and Luke's teams are pretty dull. I've got Johnson in goal. I've got Trent, Trippier, and Craig Dawson has somehow found his way into my side as my sort of differential option. That final defender spot is tricky, isn't it? If you're not going for the double Liverpool defence, and if you've got your three Arsenal attackers, we're looking at like Moreno, we're looking at Newcastle defenders, we're looking at double Crystal Palace defence. That's the trickiest spot, I think, isn't it? If you're going with the two Liverpool attackers and the three Arsenal.
Absolutely. I think, I mean, it's a lottery in one game week anyway. We know that. But in particular, there, when you're sort of comparing Moreno and Dawson, and it's been the same thing all season with defenders. Like to try and get any points out of them, incredibly tough.
Mm.
So yeah, I think you can have fun with it. To be honest, I think any are virtually as good as any other. I think I've got Shah at the moment and gone double Newcastle,
Yeah.
simply because I just wanted it more than anything because he's got some sort of attacking threat, and it's like the last game of the game
Yep.
week. So I just thought, something to cheer for. Like there's not much more rationale behind it than that. There's so many options there that you could go for. Well, I say so many. There's like 5 or 6 options, and really, it's a complete lottery between them.
Leave it to the 89th minute of the last game of the week when Spurs score a dodgy corner or something and you lose your double
Probably.
pinch. Yeah, that's normally how it goes. Elsewhere, I've gone for Salah Saka. I've got Jared Bowen in there. I've got Gakpo and Martinelli. And then up top, it's Jesus and Watkins. And we are waiting to see if we get any semblance of team news. I know there's some concerns around whether Jesus is going to start. Does Trossard come in, given they've got City in the week? They dropped points against West Ham, so you think they're probably going to play their strongest team. We are waiting for news on that. I think I've got my team on another monitor ready to make some changes if Jesus is dropped. I'm not actually sure what I'm going to do. You've got yours planned out, but I'm not actually. I think I'd probably just bring Isak in and bring in Gabriel, maybe, something like that. That's probably
you've got to have a plan ready because it could be really quick. The other fact is, like, if we do get it, I think recent leaks that we've had have sometimes been like 3 minutes to deadline. And I think because free hits seem to be pretty common, I wonder, is a site crash a thing? Like it has happened?
Oh, God, don't say, I mean, it would well
because it's
be.
a popular team, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Popular team and, free hits, lots of people logging in. Yeah, that would... that would cause a bit of frustration, wouldn't it? If the site crashes, then maybe Jesus.
Although it's a Friday night, so maybe I mean some people forget it on a Friday entirely, don't they? So maybe that will help save it rather than Saturday morning. But yeah, I've got my finger on the pulse in case they need to change it.
Good,
but
good. Yeah,
I assume it'll be their main team, like you say. Well, let's hope.
Yeah, I'm ready to go if things do happen. And there are players I like that I haven't got. I like Ben Rama. Bournemouth are awful down their flanks. I think Bowden and Ben Rama are good options this week. Sarabia, I like him as well. This Wolves left winger. Leicester are awful down the right hand side. He just has
that is left field. That is very left field. I haven't seen many people talking about Sarabia. I liked him for the. I can't remember what it was. Was it a wild card or something? I can't remember. There was a week to pick him, and he scored in that week. It was a double, wasn't it, for Wolves? That was it.
You're a big ex Mins man, and his ex Mins are they're pretty awful. They're pretty all over the place. He rarely plays over 60, 70 minutes. But, he started the last game and they won, so you think he probably keeps his place in that. I like Jordan Ayew as well. I'm seeing him creeping into
that phrase has never been said by anyone apart from his mother.
Well, a lot of people are backing Palace, aren't they? Eze, Elise, Ayew. We'll talk a bit about some stats in a bit, but yeah, I'm favouring Ayew. Anyway, they're my 3 players that you're right. I never thought those 3 players would be ones that I'd say I'm a bit upset not to own, but here we go. This is your team. You got Johnson in goal. You got the double Newcastle defence you mentioned, Sharon Trippier with Trent. And then Salah, Martinelli, Saka, Gakpo, Jesus, Isak and Watkins. Pretty much the same as mine.
Yeah, I'll just pick up something people are saying in the chat about your team first. They're saying no Madison.
Yeah, a lot of people saying no Madison. I don't fancy Leicester. I think Wolves are going to win that game. Leicester are awful.
Yeah. I mean,
people are thinking that good 15-minute spell against City when they'd already won the game. People are thinking they're going to score buckets of goals again. Awful XG at home. Dean Smith as manager. Wolves are playing well as well. They just beat Brentford. Brentford never lose at home.
Wolves have seemed to have picked it up recently. Yeah. No, fair enough. He is very popular though. I can see why. I mean, I don't like him as much as you do in the past, but
I still love him. But
yeah, well, I suppose it's the fact that I think they played wing backs, didn't they? So he was back into almost like a front 3, which seemed to suit him better last time. So yeah, he's definitely in the conversation. Like I still could potentially even go there if we get late news. Been thinking about him, but we both ended up not going for him in the end. So I
like the Isak pick. I think from what I went to the Spurs stadium and they were just so poor against Bournemouth. And you got to think Newcastle are going to. I mean, it's a massive game for them. I wonder if it's going to be a little bit cagey, but I do like the Newcastle striker up against that Spurs defence. They look so ropey every time Bournemouth went forward. They looked like they could get something.
Yeah, pretty much what I've done here is I've gone on FPL review and
No, that
I
sounds like
have
you.
it does sound like me now, and I've changed everyone's expected minutes to 90. Literally every single person in the game that was relevant anyway that I could be bothered to do, and then I run a solve for it to see who had the highest expected points. Now I know in reality, I mean, there's quite a few players I've got
Mm,
here in particular, in Jesus, Isak, and Gakpo particularly, probably won't play 90. But when I did that, this was the team that came out. The only difference was Tony Watkins was like zero point 0.1 difference between them, which was so negligible. And I just fancied Watkins over. So I made that
mm.
manual adjustment. Anderson and Shah were identical. I've got him on my bench at the moment. So I just chose Shah because I fancy going with him for the added goal threat, I think. So my bet here, really, rather than worry about anything else, is just that I get lucky on the minutes, that Gakpo maybe get a little bit more, or he does it in the short amount he gets. And the same for Jesus. And I've just picked the players that have got the highest expected chance
I'm
of
surprised
scoring points
Jota
according to the algorithm.
isn't coming in there then.
I didn't change his tonight, to be fair.
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe.
only for the ones that I were in my little crew. I should have done him just to see, to be fair, but yeah, I didn't include him because I thought he was more at risk
Mm.
from Diaz and Darwin. But ultimately, I mean, Gakpo probably gets like 75 maybe at most if he starts. Would you say? I think that's
Yeah.
it's fairly safe. And then it's just the nature of the game, obviously, and the fact that he's a midfielder playing up front. That if he does end up getting 75, what damage can he do in that time? And that's the hope. I think you have to have a little bit of fun on a free hit, right? Try to at least. We talked
Have
about it
we had
before we
fun?
start. Well,
I tell you what, I do feel like there is a bit of a over, people get a bit kind of bogged down with trying to be different and stuff. Because actually, I look at these teams. I think no one's going to have this team that on the free hit. And we always talk about the Twitter circle being quite small and stuff, but there's plenty of players we can get excited about. Looking at your team, like
yeah,
Jesus, Gakpo, Isak, even
yeah. I don't mean
Johnston,
being
not many are going to
different.
have.
I don't mean being different. I just mean having fun yourself in terms of
Mm,
cheering on players you may not like. I probably won't own Jesus for the rest of the season. I
mm.
probably won't own Gakpo. I won't have the opportunity to. Probably won't have Martinelli come into my team, unfortunately, from now to the end of the season. And these are players I like for those game weeks. So it's like played into it because, I mean, we've said it so many times. How much luck is there in individual game where you can look at the highest score every week and probably outside Haaland, it's like a random name pretty much every time. And
Yeah.
yes, there's got to be some logic behind it. Like, you don't want to go completely wild. I think you pretty much have to have three Arsenal and you have to have three Liverpool just because of the natures of the games. The fixtures are so standout. But outside that, we're talking like margins between these players. So you can kind of just go with your gut, I think, over it. And ultimately, you can make good or bad decisions. And that word variance is going to come out because
Mm.
anything can happen here. And Isak could, I mean, he might not even start, get injured, miss a penalty. We've seen it all in recent weeks. Like literally anything can happen for these players. So
There's no real bad picks, is there? In a one-off free hit week, there's no.
not particularly. I mean,
No.
there's obviously we take it to extremes. Like, yeah, you're not going to pick like Dendoncker, are you?
No.
He probably scores now, but within a margin, like you can kind of go a bit wild. So yeah, I
Like
think
Isak versus Bowen versus Ben Rama versus Eze versus Elise versus Sarabia versus
precisely.
Madison. Like there's a couple. There's only really a couple of spots we can play with, but I feel like, but that's. I mean, if you go Robertson for example and Trent or Van Dijk and Trent, then you've got an extra midfield spot to use on someone. Yeah, it's. I mean, this is Mark's team. He hasn't gone completely rogue, but he has made a couple of interesting calls. He's gone for Leno in goal at home to Leeds.
okay. I looked at him. I did like him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's gone for Gabriel, so he hasn't gone for the triple Arsenal attack, and he's gone for Odegaard, so no Jesus and no Martinelli. He's got Mark Gahey in there, at home to Everton. He's gone for Trent captain, which is
Okay.
his biggest
Yeah.
move. He's gone for Son, so I like this. If you're backing against the Newcastle defence, you get rid of Trippier and you go for one of Son or Kane. He's got Gakpo, he's got Isak, and the only player which I said what I didn't agree with was he's got Edouard up top, which I don't particularly like.
No, that's probably the very very ropey one. The rest of it is sort of within the mainstream a little bit,
I
isn't it? Or at
like
least
it.
on the
I like
periphery.
it. Yeah, I like it. I mean, you look at Southampton. I mean, I was looking at some stats on Southampton, and they concede like the most chances in central areas. So Jesus looks good. They have like one of the worst. They concede some of the most. I think the third most chances down their right hand side. So that's Martinelli and like Tierney. They're awful from set pieces. They have one of the worst like set pieces. So that's like Gabriel, Odegaard, Saka. It's like any of these Arsenal players could deliver. It's probably going to be Ben White.
Well, that's funny you say that because he's one I've really wanted to have like the entire time. My main decision actually has been: do I have Ben White and not have that double Newcastle, and then as a result lose Jesus, or do I go for Jesus just because? His expected goals involvement's really really high, and obviously he's been fantastic in games that he started. But it's kind of the minutes risk with him. I think I'm pretty sure Trossard will come on at some point for him, or if he's even starting. That's where the risk is. But yeah, his team now, I mean, I like it. It's just the Edouard one. I think Son's like a fine punt. He's punted on the player, hasn't he, more than anything else? I know it's a hard fixture, but Son's obviously got pedigree.
He's been in a couple of my drafts, Son, because I toyed with taking Trippier out and going with Son, but then it just means losing one of those midfield options that I quite like.
Yeah, but at Mark's rank, as he keeps saying, he wants to take a few risks. And, this is the thing. If you're going to take a risk, a player like Son, he is a player that does have braces and hat-trick potential. Like, I don't think it will happen in this game by any means, but you never know. And it's like we talked about the one-off game. I mean, I did quite similar with the Gareth Bale thing once upon a time. So I think I wish him luck with it because I don't think many people will have him at all, even outside of free hits. I can't even imagine what his ownership is, actually. I should check it, but it's probably extremely low.
Edouard over Watkins and Toney?
Yeah, I don't agree with that one, but it's a good game and Palace are on fire, so I can understand it at least. But I just think there's a whole host of other strikers that you could go for there. Yeah. Antonio on the bench, I just noticed as well. That is rogue.
Yeah. Well, you don't want too many points on your bench, as I learned last week. Let's take a look at some data. Let's cover this sort of fairly quickly. I've kind of marked the kind of the key players for this game. Obviously, there's going to be people watching this who aren't ready for it. By the way, we've got nearly 1,200 people watching this deadline stream. So I know you've all got other options. I know Raptor's going and Andy's going and all that, but thanks for choosing us. And as I say that, my Zoom says we're going to run out of time, so we're going to deal with that in a second. We're back to this.
Oh, not all this old chestnut.
This lovely thing as well. Yeah. No,
By the way, can I just say, anyone in the chat, if any leaks do come out for Arsenal, me and ours probably won't see it. So can you put them in there and don't be arseholes and give us fake ones? I've already seen there's no Xhaka apparently.
Is that true? Yeah. I mean, what would that mean? That would mean less free roaming for Odegaard, maybe.
Well, Jorginho would play instead, I imagine. Jorginho and Partey. I don't know if Zinchenko's playing. Not sure.
Xhaka is out. Wow. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, he wasn't really featuring people's teams, but he's been such a good player for us, wasn't it? It might affect them going forward a bit, but yeah, we'll deal with that. Fabio Vieira, people are saying might come in. We haven't seen much of him, is he? They paid quite a lot of money for him.
Yeah, he looks like a really good player. He's just fallen foul of the fact that everyone else is playing so well. So,
yeah,
quite surprising because he looked quite lightweight. So you always worry about that with the Premier League. But done well.
Yep. So let's start in goal. I've marked 3 out here. They're probably the only 3 that I'd be considering, and that's Johnston, who I like the look of. Pope, you've got a double Newcastle defence, so you obviously favour them to keep a clean sheet in this. And then Leno, like Mark's got. I don't read. I mean, you could go for like a Martinez or a Sarr potentially, but I think it's one of those 3, isn't it? This week.
Yeah, probably. I understand why he's gone Leno. He's made loads of saves all season, and he's outperformed for a goalkeeper as well on the amount of saves he's made. So I know Mark loves his whole theories of who needs to go for points and stuff. And if there's any team that needs to actually try and go for points in attack, it is Leeds. I don't think they can defend for love nor money either. So I guess that's what he's thinking. That Leeds are going to have to go for shots and goals, and they're not particularly good at it. And then they will make a bunch of saves, which is fair because Fulham's defensive numbers are actually pretty poor for the whole season. So, it's an interesting one with a potentially quite high ceiling. And he was in my thoughts. I just think Johnston's also been making quite a lot of saves. Everton, in terms of their attacking options, just lacking all over. And it's similar applies, I guess. They're in desperation for a goal. And they've got the higher clean sheet odds. So it just makes sense to go for Johnson rather than Leno, ultimately.
So it's a very small sample size, but Johnson has made the most saves per 90 in his 2 starts compared to the others, 5.5 saves. His baseline bonus is the highest as well at 20, and his points per 90 is the second highest to Martinez at 6.5. So obviously there's no guarantee that Palace are going to keep steamrolling teams and winning comfortably and all of that, but it's a good looking home game against Everton. I think he's kind of the best option this week. So
I did briefly consider the triple up on Newcastle defence. I've got Shah and Trippier, so I thought if I'm going to do it, I may as well go all in and get Pope. But I've got Isak because I really like him and he appeared on that model. But my alternative was not to have Isak and then go for Pope. Because I think you've played daily games in the past as well. I mean, when you have a free hit team for a week, usually the teams that do the very best are the teams that go all in on like block defenses and stuff for a particular. Like you've also got the chance of just being absolutely awful, of course. But
yeah, I mean, I'm seeing teams with 3 Palace defenders, for example,
stuff like that,
to try and get that. I like it. Yeah, I think it's a good strategy. It's just heartbreaking when when that goal goes in from an Iwobi cross or something, just gets fumbled into the net or something like that. It's quite disappointing. I'm just going to sort the Zoom out, just because I don't want to leave it too close to the deadline. So I'm just going to end this Zoom and then start a new one. But we can still carry on talking. But yeah, give me 1 second to sort that out.
What? So we can still keep talking to the people and it won't disappear?
Yeah. Well, our faces will, but our voices won't. I'm going to put it over to defenders now. If you want to just talk about some of these, Trent is second in terms of XGI, non-penalty per 90, 0.43, and I've highlighted some others. I mean, what do you think about the kind of this? There's a few people going for Robertson, but a bit worried about his attacking threat. What are your kind of thoughts on that? Oh, Luke has gone. Sorry, everyone. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to sort this out. Sorry, everyone. My fault again. It's really annoying that thing because it keeps signing me into different Zoom accounts. But there we go. But anyway, we're back. Luke is here as well. We couldn't do the thing that I intended. Hi, mate. Hello. Sorry. Yeah, it kicked us out of the Zoom. I thought it would be all right, but it wasn't. Anyway, we're back. Team data defense. Let's come on to some of this before we get into some of the other player positions. Let's carry on with players because we haven't got a huge amount of time. Trent is second highest now. Obviously, everyone's loving this new midfield kind of role for him. Robertson, though, I mean, he was very popular at the start of the week. It looks like most people are moving towards Gakpo now. People are a bit worried about his attacking output. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, in that system, it makes sense that he kind of is more of a centre-back, almost mirroring Arsenal and Man City. Seems to be the meta at the moment, so I get that. I think in a game like this, though, he will be able to push forward a little bit. Like, he still has to cover the left spaces. They will have a lot of the ball. He will push up. With Robertson, it's more to do with the fact that he's also on corners, which get you, creative points as well in terms of towards the bonus system. Anytime you're a creative fullback, obviously they could just score from an assist from a corner as well from that side. So I still think he's absolutely fine. And I think out of all the clean sheet odds, he's right up there, isn't he? Because Forest just struggle to score away from home, like flat out. So he's still in the conversation for me, without a doubt. I think it is more risky to go with Gakpo because of the minutes thing, but it's kind of just chancing it that Liverpool win sort of 5-0 or something and Gakpo's involved in 2 or 3 goals rather than go Robbo. But there's nothing to say that Robbo can't get like a 12-15 pointer. It's completely possible, isn't it?
I still like him. I mean, Van Dijk as well. I mean, obviously, from set pieces, but I think I'd still edge for Robertson over Van Dijk. I mean, are Forest going to attack? I mean, they kind of have to, don't they? Because they're expected to lose quite heavily and need points.
They've had to all season and they've just been diabolical at it. Yeah. I think the only thing you could say really, if you're looking at that, is that Brennan Johnson's clearly their best player. He plays out on that position. He's going to be the one threat, I would suggest, on the counter. Maybe he can cause him a bit of problems, and as a result, Klopp will have a kind of a plan in mind for that. That's the one thing that gives me the sort of thought that Tsimikas won't play as well. It's the fact that the left centre-back role doesn't seem particularly suited to Tsimikas, and the fact that Forest is main threat, if there is such a thing, is Brennan Johnson, where you'd have thought Robertson would be able to handle that a bit better. So I saw there was worries about rotation and stuff because you could throw Robbo in there. He has occasionally missed a game for Simicast, hasn't he? But I'm pretty sure he'll start based on that. But I suppose you could almost swing it around and say, well, if everyone is going to play from now to the end of the season, what games can they give to the lesser player? Clearly, this one stands out as probably one of the best fixtures. So you could look at it either way.
Yeah. I mean, anyone else you like on this list? I mean, Alex Moreno's there in 11th. Ben White in 10th. Ben White's actually been chipping in with quite a few kind of attacking returns lately. Gabriel is there 14th. I mean, like we've talked about a lot though, the defence is you're just going to get lucky, aren't you? If you're going to get an attacking return from a defender, you're going to get lucky.
Absolutely. Sorry, the chat's getting spammed by someone. Do you have any moderators?
Where is Mark? Here he goes. In fact, had to be something, didn't it, about Mark? Yeah, sorted.
Sorry, what was your question, mate? I was distracted.
Just that, if you're picking a defender, the attacking returns are you're going to get pretty lucky, aren't you? There's no one massively standing out across this list. Gabriel, I really do like the look of. I think if there is any Arsenal news, it's going to have to come pretty soon, but I would definitely switch to Gabriel. I think he'd be my next in line to bring in. I did like Tierney. I posted about him earlier on Twitter. I think Zinchenko has travelled, I saw, so there's still a bit of concern that he might start, even though Arteta said he was a doubt, and then obviously Tierney's playing.
He's done this before though, Arteta, hasn't he? He said that Trossard was out or something, and then he was starting, or I think it was that. The fact he's travelled, he travelled last week as well and didn't play, so I don't think you can read too much into it. But I suppose if he's available, it's the perfect kind of game to use him in because they're going to dominate the ball in the game, aren't they? So having Zinchenko there in build-up, especially if they've lost Xhaka as well, will make a lot of sense. But we can't pick him as a result. It's what will be there. I actually do really like Ben White as well. I think that his attacking numbers have increased recently. I think Gabriel and him are actually quite similar. Like Gabriel's a massive threat from every set piece. Like we've known that. His numbers are great. But from open play in a game like this where they will be presumably pushed up and have the majority of the ball, Ben White appears, in the box. He appears at the back post a lot. I think he's definitely got an added threat in terms of assists. So yeah, I don't really hate him. I think you're more likely if you're going to say between them who's going to get a return, I actually think Ben White's more likely to get a return in terms of an assist. But obviously Gabriel's got the world star, scores a goal, gets a massive haul as a result because they're worth double assists. They're worth double points and an assist for a defender, aren't they? So yeah, I think both are great, and those are the two I'd pick. I don't really fancy Tierney or Zinchenko personally.
No, fair enough. Not too far. Right, we're going to carry on going because we're approaching deadline in 15 minutes to go. Midfield, Salah and Martinelli, they're very popular, second and third. Salah 0.85 over the last 6. XG 0.90. He's back to his kind of best, looking really, really dangerous again. Looking like, this system is working. Where does Darwin fit into that? Where does Diaz fit into that when he's fit? Firmino as well, could play a couple before the end of the season, but he's out of this week. Odegaard is in 9th, 0.54. Not seeing him in too many teams, although Mark has got him. Son, 0.51. Picking up some attacking returns now. 4 attacking returns in his 6 starts. Sarabia, my boy, there he is. Just 2 starts though in the last 6. Is anyone brave enough to pick him? And then Jordan Ayew is ahead of the Palace lot over the last 6. Not by much though, 0.4. Elise is the same, 0.4 as well. Eze is just behind that, 0.38. It's not much separating the 3 Palace. Which mid would you pick out of the Palace 3?
I don't know. I see a lot of people say Eze because he's the goal threat and goals are worth more points. So that's, I haven't got enough to dissuade from that. I would personally go Elise just because I think, again, there's more chance of him just picking up something if I had to pick between the two. I know they kind of share the set pieces, but Elise, I just really love him as a player. I love them both, but I really like Elise. So I think I'd just go there, but there's pretty much nothing in it.
I was surprised to see Gakpo solo down. I had to actually go onto the next page to find him. He's 34th on the list. Points per 90 is in the top 10 of midfielders, 6.47. But next John on point per 90 of 0.37. That's below players like Joe Linton, Harrison, Jacob Murphy, Billing. Those guys have all got better. And, when you think about the amount of goals he's scored, the amount of assists he's got, over the last kind of year, those stats are quite grim reading. But it's Forest at home, so who actually cares about stats?
Yeah, and his XG per 90 is actually really, really good. It was really, really good before he came to Liverpool, and it's also pretty good since he's been here. So I'm not particularly worried about that.
Yep. Forwards, Jesus is top. That's why he's so popular. He's top by a lot. He's got 4 goals in 3 starts. XG non-penalty 90 of 1.23. As I mentioned, Southampton really struggling from these central positions. Southend are also struggling from central positions. They're struggling everywhere financially and on the pitch as well. I've seen a few people going for Iheanacho. I've actually seen him creeping into a few teams. Really good XG non-penalty per 90 stats, 0.88. But Vardy's been playing, hasn't he? So seems like a bit of a stretch to me, but
Yeah. Well, you're clearly not doing it. But if you were Mark, for example, where he's gone with Edouard, would you pick him over him?
God, what a choice, Iheanacho or Edouard. No, I'd probably pick Edouard still. I don't really like the Iheanacho punt. They're like Palace. I don't really trust any of the strikers at Leicester. Daka, Iheanacho, Vardy. None of them are doing it this season. It's the same at Palace. Like Mateta's come off the bench and scored in games. They're always the kind of the first casualty, aren't they, if the team isn't doing too well? So
I think on that note, actually, we said about having fun on free hit, and I am behind that. But I think the one area really not to do it particularly when there are so many other good options is the forward spot, because we just have so many good forward options. Like I'm struggling to pick.
Well, Edouard is down in 23rd out of forwards. He's had 5 starts, which is encouraging for his minutes, but XG non-penalty 90 of 0.26, no 0.27. Sorry, I mean that's. I mean Jota isn't that much higher. Jota's just above him, 0.31 as well. You look at Isak 0.49, Tony 0.55.
You've just got these 90-minute strikers on penalties, and I know I'm kind of going against that with Isak because he might come off early and he might not even have penalties, but. Yeah, there's just too many, isn't there? I mean, Kane, Tony, like you just said straight away. You got Solanke in that bracket. You got Watkins who's in that bracket. There's just so many of those. So I don't think the forward spot is one where you want to mess around too much out of the status quo.
I mean, look at Tony's shot in the box on this chart, 1,472. That's not right. that would be pretty ridiculous. It wouldn't surprise me with him. But yeah, that's obviously.
I don't know. He's never in the box, really, is he?
No, that's true. I still can't believe he missed that penalty. A little while ago. Tony Essential, says Craig. Yeah, that sums it up. Team data defence. Look at Palace in second over the last 6. 0.9, second only to Man City. Newcastle, despite sort of conceding quite a few goals over the last few games, are in third. Right down the bottom is Leeds by a long way. Fulham attackers are definitely a differential this week, but Leeds are conceding a crazy amount of chances. As they kind of go. Bournemouth are right down there as well. So West Ham. There's goals in that, which we've both kind of predicted in that game.
That game looks interesting, doesn't it?
It does.
On that note, for the Fulham team, I think Pereira, he's like 4.3 million. Obviously, he's been one of the stars of the season, really, particularly in the early part. But do you think that puts people off having him in the team? Because
definitely.
I've looked at it, doesn't it? Because even him and at times I've had Maddison in my team and I've sort of looked at them both, and again on review their expected value is pretty much equal. It's the fact that he's on penalties just draws me to him a lot as well, because getting a goal for the midfielder, he is quite creative, and leads his defence, man.
If he was 7 million, we'd see him in more teams. I've got absolutely no doubt about it. I'd like to think that wouldn't sway me too much, but it probably does in a way. I mean, I made a team, with Son in that was like exactly my budget, and with 3 kind of like fodder players, and it felt really nice. It's like, I've maximised my budget over the season.
Old school,
classic, I've got to this level, but then I don't think it was as strong as the one that I've got now, which is obviously famous last words. But yeah, you like Wilson as well, don't you? You were talking about him as being
I think he's looked good in recent times. And I mean, he was an extremely good player for them in the Championship, and he's just been really unlucky with injuries. The thing that puts me off a little bit about Fulham is they looked really good having, I've forgotten his name, Dan James up top, who was stretching the play rather than Vinicius.
Yeah,
and because they play Leeds, he can't play, can he?
No, exactly.
So, although I do think there'll be goals in that game, I think if Dan James was involved in it, which seems strange to say because I don't particularly rate him as a person who would generate goals for the team, but he does help the team out, I think, by stretching it and giving the space to the likes of Wilson and Andreas. So, that put me off a little bit in the end. But I think they're fine. They're also in that bracket of, I think you could easily just go for Andreas, Wilson, and they'd be fine. They're more the areas that I'd want to mess around with, that extra midfield spot and that extra defender spot.
Yeah, agreed. Attack, then Arsenal in second. That's why we're all favouring them. Newcastle in third. Looking good for Isak. and maybe potentially Wilson if he starts as well. There's a few people talking about Jesus being benched. I don't believe it until I until I see it. But there's a couple of people.
Don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy. Don't give us fake news. Come on, we're trying to do a stream here. But yeah, Arsenal and Newcastle look good to invest in. Liverpool in sixth, which is surprising given that they've just absolutely run wild against Leeds. You think they'd be a little bit higher.
Oh, hang on. As I'm just looking at chats, got people at me. So Andy says apparently, usual Arsenal team is Zinchenko is back. So I don't know what that means. Usual Arsenal team presumably is the team.
Usual team Zinchenko back. Is that what we said?
Yeah. So Zinchenko is going to be playing instead of Tierney, and it's going to be the team we expect. So Holding, Saliba, White. He's not even mentioned the Xhaka thing actually. So I don't know whether that's true or not, because I'd expect Xhaka would be in the usual team. But anyway, that's almost close to irrelevant. It looks like Zinchenko's back in, and I'd imagine that's Jesus up top.
Okay, there goes
Martinelli, Saka, and Odegaard.
There goes that Tierney punt then. Yeah, cool.
Straight away.
Yeah, no changes for me then. Jesus, Martinelli, and Saka. I'll be going in. So, yeah. Okay. No. That's good enough for me to think. Unless we get something close to the deadline, that's more than fine. Just two things to mention here is Southampton and Forest right down the bottom here. I mean, Southampton haven't actually been that bad defensively. They're not since the restart. They're in the kind of bottom, well, the top. How we want to look at it, the top 10 for defenses, as in their defenses aren't conceding loads of chances, but their attack is absolutely awful. Which is why the clean sheet for Arsenal does look good, but Saliba being out does massively impact them, and I'm still backing Arsenal to get a couple in this, but just something to bear in mind. Their attack is awful and the defence isn't actually too bad. Forest are awful in attack and defence. If Forest score away at Anfield, that's a miracle. I think so. I think you're pretty much locking in a clean sheet with Trent, at least he says. Obviously we never know what's going on.
Well, that is part of the appeal for captaining them, I guess, because
you're starting with 6 pretty much, unless Forest can pull something out of the bag.
Yeah, and you'd expect there'll be an onslaught of crosses from Trent as a result. So, yeah, it could end up being a masterclass. Captaining defenders does occasionally just give you massive rewards as a result, because they technically are the highest ceiling players in the game, I guess, because they get more points for the same actions, and they can get points from a clean sheet, which like a forward can't. Yeah. Obviously, they're not usually the ones who actually score or assist, but in a world where that's possible with Trent, was it the Leicester game where he got like 21 points? Like, you could see this game potentially being one like that. I took him out for that as well.
Yeah. I know you did. That was your classic move, wasn't it?
Over-management.
Mine's the Watkins and Moreno one, I think. 21 on the bench, and then yours is that Trent. Absolute classic. We've got 5 minutes till the deadline. Let us know some questions in the chat. Christian says Jota will explode. Clearly going for him. Could do. I mean, if I knew that Jota or Nunes was going to start, I would probably pick one of those, I think, over Gakpo.
Okay, yeah.
If Nunes was starting, I'd be there.
I'd be with you as well. I think Gakpo's, he's more the facilitator, isn't he? A little bit. Like, the game's fine. He could do absolutely great. And even like Firmino's banged hat-tricks in the past. Like, I'm not saying he can't score points, but it's more the facilitator to get Salah and to get the wide forwards in the game. And yeah, Jota is obviously a very good goal scorer. He has been ever since he's been at Liverpool, to be fair. And Nunes in particular, the numbers are fantastic. So I would have one of those as well. But we just don't know, didn't we? It's a little bit too much of a risk, that one for me. But if you're confident he plays, then you're only going to beat yourself up if you see him in a starting lineup and he bangs 2 goals. So go for it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people talk about Jota and his pressing being key to that style. I mean, the one thing with Jota is he has had that injury, isn't he? And they've got a lot of games coming up and stuff. So, although he's perfect for that system, he can't press if he's knackered. A few people saying share teams. Where's Martin? We've done that already. Just head back in the video. Nothing's changed. We did. The first thing we did was show all 3 of our teams. So head back and look at those. If you like. Stefan says, do you fancy Kane? You clearly don't. You've got 2 Newcastle defenders.
Yeah, which is probably a good reason to fancy him, to be fair.
Kane was not on it in that Bournemouth game. He looked like, when we saw him last season when he was like when he wanted his move and he threw his toys out the pram a bit and he was just kind of ambling around. That's how he looked. Wasn't pressing, didn't look up for a fight at all. So it worries me a bit.
I think with Spurs, they really need really good coaching to make them a good side. Like, even Conte's kind of struggled. Like, Jose's did very well, and then ended up struggling eventually. And any sort of interim manager we've had in between that, or a period where it's just not, even Conte when he first came in didn't turn it around straight away. Like the whole unit doesn't particularly work well. But that's not, I mean, Kane could easily score. He's obviously got penalties. Yeah, he's an absolutely fine pick. It's just that whole thing of I'm on a free hit. I'm going to pick Newcastle instead. I'm going to back them, as I think they're a good side at home. They're in the top three. Their data's really good at home, and just hope it comes through. But could Kane score? Absolutely, he can.
Yeah, I prefer Son to Kane if I was going to pick one. Finn says if I could triple captain Isak, I would. I think Newcastle is definitely scoring that match.
They have been a bit ropey the last couple. I don't say anything. If you were going on like just form, or like the eye test of the last one or two, I know the game versus Villa, obviously they got battered as a bit of a surprise. You could say there's been a little bit of a downturn. I think they've only kept like one clean sheet in 10 as well. So I get what people are saying, but I try to ignore the short term and just assume they're going to get back on track. And maybe that's the wrong play, but we've got to. I want to go all in one way or the other. I don't really like edging my bets in a free hit. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I went all in though last week on Newcastle over Villa because I was like, if I'm playing Trippier, and I don't really want to play Watkins or Moreno because I think Newcastle are going to score in that game, and that went terrible. My cat? No.
Okay, I'll just mention it for no reason. It's like meowing in my face. Yeah,
he likes to make an appearance on these streams. Sorry, she makes make an appearance. 1 minute till deadline. Get those teams locked in. I haven't made any changes. Have you made any last minute ones?
No, I've kept it. I mean, that's just off of some random group chat, so I hope it's correct. Yeah, no last minute panics. Just have to hope.
He won't give Jesus 0 minutes anyway, even if it turns out to be rubbish. He'll give him 30 or something. Could be enough.
Yeah, we've been through it. The worry with him is he'd probably come off at like 60, 65. Yeah, I just hope he's done the damage beforehand.
Yeah, we'll be kicking ourselves. He comes off at 60 with or 58 with 1 point, and then we're looking at Tony and looking at. I've been looking at Isak and thinking, I should have gone there, but yeah, we'll obviously. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this week. Should be interesting. I'm hoping that the team looks good, and that's enough. But we'll see. That is it. That is the deadline passed. Before we go, we will just talk through our predictions for the fixtures. Mark's even done his. I was amazed when he sent me these as well. We've all gone pretty similar. I think this is a week where we're not expecting huge upsets, which probably means there'll be huge upsets.
Yeah, I've gone goal crazy as well.
You have.
I've just noticed you guys have gone pretty heavy, but I thought, why not? I've pretty much put it exactly how I would like it to go for my free hit team, which is never going to happen, is it?
You know what? I respect that. Arsenal Southampton, I've gone for a 2-0. You've gone for a 3-0, and Mark's gone for a 3-0 as well. You and I, clean sheet with no Arsenal defenders is a bit of a concern, but we've backed the attack. In that, I mean, it should be a comfortable win, shouldn't it, tonight?
Yeah, just hope Jesus gets more than Gabriella White, pretty much. I know there's the other player to take into account with it as well, but yeah, that's the gamble we're taking there.
Yep. Fulham Leeds, we've gone a bit different here. Oh no, we haven't. We've all gone the same. Sorry, it's another match. We've all gone a bit different. Fulham Leeds, we've all gone for a Fulham win. I've gone for a 2-1. You've gone for a 3-2. Lots of goals in that one. Mark's gone for a 2-1 as well. You're going to regret not having a Pereira or Wilson, aren't you?
I think I am, to be honest. I mean, again, I talked about the Dan James thing. I think maybe I've gone a bit eccentric there, but you never know. Rodrigo is another one that I actually like as a random punt. There's just no place for him in our teams, but it's another midfielder on penalties who's probably up front because Bamford looked like he's out. And I've already said Fulham's defence is woeful.
Yep.
So if you were trying to be like, again, if you're in like Mark's position, then Rodrigo's a name I might throw out there. But yeah, deadline's gone now anyway.
Yep. We've all gone exactly the same scoreline for Brentford Villa. All gone for a 2-1 Villa. All convinced Brentford score 1. So I know Moreno's popular. Might be having to rely on attacking returns of him. Not seeing many Tonys in people's teams, but I do like him. I wonder if Mark has actually gone without Watkins. I think that is a bold move, given what he's been doing lately.
Yeah, he's been on fire. He's been on absolute fire. Data's good, returns are good, everything. In like, you say it's only like 8-9 games. Well, it's pretty much since Emery came in, but in the last 8 or 9 games in particular, it's been good. Yeah, it's a toughish game, but it just, again, that feels like a step too far because it's also, you have to take into account a bit of a tactical shift, I think, just with the fact that the whole team seems geared towards him and his ability to peel off and just offer himself as an option is great. It's quite strange, though, because when you look at the Villa team and you look at like, they've almost got like McGinn in a wide role and like Ramsey in a wide role, and they're more traditional like centre midfielders or 8s or whatever. And you worry, like, where's the creativity really coming from? Obviously, Buendia is in there and he's quite creative, but where is the team that's able to pass these balls to Watkins? But they just seem to be able to manage it. It's just working really well. So it's all credit to the manager. So
yeah, I mean, Newcastle were especially poor, especially down the flanks. I mean, Dan Burn got absolutely torn apart. It's the worst game I've seen Botman have. Worst game I've seen Trippier have as well. Gamiris looked like he couldn't pass the ball. It was a very weird.
He got destroyed.
Yeah, it was a very weird performance from them. But yeah, Villa have also obviously been really good as well. Palace, Everton. All gone for a clean sheet here. That is very hopeful, I think. We're all back. That's going to be the first clean sheet to go, isn't it, in the 3:00 games? You just know it.
Yeah, I did briefly have like a double up and then even a triple up of Newcastle defence. And I thought, this is the game where I'm not going to be watching or can't, this is 3:00. I'm just going to see a group chat message saying Crystal Palace busted. Like, please, like 100%, I can see that happening, unfortunately.
Yep. Let's hope not. There was some reports earlier that Guaita was in training, by the way.
Yeah, I saw that. I'd be a bit brave to put him straight back in. Johnson's been fine.
Good as well. Yeah, I don't think it's happened. Leicester Wolves. I've gone for my hopeful result here. 1-0 Dawson header for Wolves. You've gone for a 1-0. Mark's gone for a 2-0 Wolves. I mean, I saw Lee posting earlier about there being a rocking atmosphere at the King Power. I think there's more likely they're going to be worried. First 10 minutes, okay, buzzing, but if Leicester start making a few little slip ups and Wolves can kind of get at them, the atmosphere is going to quickly change to one of nerves because they've really got to get some points, and this will be a game they'll target to win.
I found this the hardest game of all of them to predict. Actually, I wanted to put 0-0 down. Then I thought, well, I'm not sure Leicester could ever get a 0, not concede a goal, but Wolves can't really score, and just went in circles. In the end, I went with a 1-1 draw. But I thought that game seems particularly tough to me to call.
Look at this, Liverpool Forest. Mark's gone for a 4-0 Liverpool. So have I. You've gone for a 5. Poor Mark.
Again, I think it's exactly what we want to see. Will we see it? Is another manner, but Forest are just so bad. So yeah, hopefully we get to see something like that. I think with Liverpool, the fact is the extra goals, like you saw it against Leeds, and maybe that's why there's a little bit of bias in our mind, but they can literally change the front three, and the front three is like almost as good, if not like in some cases maybe even better, and they'll just keep going. Like those guys have got to make an impression as well. They want to score, they want to get themselves in the team, so they feel like a team that are just going to keep going for goals. And this is obviously a game that if you want to rack them up and impress, it's quite easy to do so.
They've been such an odd team this year, Liverpool. I mean, these huge wins against Leeds, against Bournemouth, against United, and then they lost to Bournemouth straight after beating United, didn't they? When they at home as well? Or was it at Bournemouth?
Sorry, again, I got distracted reading the chat. I can't do two things at once. I need to work on it.
Really
Dale's put a super chat in there. What
okay.
Just wanted to make you aware.
Just getting through the fixtures first. We'll come to that. Don't worry, Dal. We'll come to it. Bournemouth, West Ham. You gone for goals in this one as well, 3-2. I've gone for a 2-1 Bournemouth. I was really impressed with them against Spurs, and West Ham have just had a big win in Europe, and that'll be the focus really. I think they're probably safe in the league. They could probably do with a couple more wins, but they didn't score many goals away from home, West Ham. But yeah, I'm hoping Bowen gets something. Mark agrees. Oh no, Mark. This is the one we've all gone different. You've gone for a 3-2 Bournemouth. I've gone for a 2-1, and then Mark's gone for a 2-1, the opposite way to West Ham.
I think it's a tricky match to call tactically, just because neither team particularly likes the ball. Bournemouth being the home side, you'd expect them to try and come out and try and win the game. And that's not really what they're used to. They've sort of done well more not having the ball, being on the counter with their front three that have been quite fast. And West Ham, they literally give up more possession to any team. Obviously, just come out of Europe as well, like you say. So they presumably will try and just give Bournemouth the ball, and then you wonder if Bournemouth can actually make things happen when they're not used to it. So tactically, it just seems quite a strange game to call. Or maybe West Ham try to dominate the ball as a result. I mean, yeah, it doesn't really seem Moyes' style though. So I don't know why I went 3-2. Probably because I don't have Solanke, so I always expect the worst to happen.
They're very popular, isn't it? It's funny, 3 hits, people picking Solanke over Kane and that lot. Crazy week. And then finally, Newcastle Spurs. And we've all gone for a clean sheet for Newcastle. I've gone for a 2. You've gone for a 3. And Mark's gone for a 1. Yeah, interesting game. Big game for Newcastle in the top 4 battle. I thought this last week with Villa, but they were really poor. But they should be. They're a better team than Spurs.
It's interesting that Mark's gone 1-0 and then he's picked Son in his team.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe he did them independently, did one and then tweaked and changed it or whatever. Yeah, I've got the double Newcastle defence, so I'm hoping that there's no goal in it. But when you've got Kane, Son, presumably Richarlison's probably going to be playing. I mean, they're all players that can score goals, so it's just because that game was last, pretty much in the game week, and I want to have like everyone's probably going to have Trippier or close to it, even if you're not on a free hit in that game. So I've got like the 2 extra players to cheer on.
Yeah,
that's kind of why I did that.
It's a shame one of them was a defender.
Yeah,
I hate cheering on defenders.
Shah's got good numbers though. He's not as close to Gabriel, but he's not.
Oh, he's the kind of player even in the 90th minute could smash in a worldie from outside the area.
Yeah, or go off injured because I swear every game he goes down like with a knock as well.
All that. Yeah, one of the two. Excellent. Let's answer Dal. Thank you for the super chat. We do appreciate it. Quite a good question actually. I mean, there are obviously people with chips left who haven't used them yet. I'm surprised you haven't used a free hit this week, Dal, but fair enough. But he's ranked 1,814th in the world, so clearly knows what he's doing. 1,814th in the world, still has a free hit and a wild card left. Pretty decent.
How's he managed that?
No idea. Plan is wild card in 33, but when would you free hit?
He's wild carding 33. Okay, so presumably he'll pick up a really good team for 34. Then, although it's very similar to the 37, it just makes sense to use your free hit in 37, doesn't it, and maximise the double?
Absolutely. Yeah, you free hit in 37. You got Newcastle, you got Chelsea, Brighton probably as well. I mean, you probably already have some Brighton players in the wild card, but yeah, Newcastle and Chelsea won't have any of those.
You just go with the most up-to-date info because even if you wildcard in 33 with 37 in mind, things will change, won't they? Invariably, people get injured. You've got teams in competitions which could change their lineup and sort of what direction they're going. There's the whole on the beach motive as well. I suppose there is an argument maybe to do it on 38. Like, if your team's absolutely fine for 37, and then because every team kicks off at the same time, I think we seem to get team news more and more now, even though the deadline's moved. Perhaps you could take advantage of that because we know on the final day that some teams will mess around with bits and pieces. So that's probably an alternative, but I'd still pick 37 over it.
I free hit in 38. It was an absolute disaster, but it was my own fault. It was fun.
That surprised me.
Yeah, it was fun doing it, but yeah, I picked all the wrong players. It was my own fault. I took Aubameyang out, I think, and I think he got 2 goals and assists or something against Watford. That was a dark day. Anyway, we will call it there. Good luck to everyone this week. I hope everyone gets nice big green arrows. I hope you get a nice big green arrow look. Although 51k, you're flying this season.
I'm doing all right again
FPL
now,
review, pick your teams, doing well for you,
That's exactly why, yeah. I was 10k and now I've gone down, so it still feels bad overall. But what has given me sort of wind in my sails is the fact that I mentioned it last week. We were level like 3 weeks ago again, and now I'm like 50 points ahead of you. So I don't know what you've done because I think you used a chip in that time as well.
Yeah, well, did you captain Saka?
I did captain Saka, yeah.
So that Saka one cost me like 15 points, and then benching Watkins is 11. So that's 26. That's half of that. And then, you probably just made some better decisions. So,
well, got more lucky is what it is. You've at least been sending it. No one can accuse you of not sending it and trying to claw it back or rise up the ranks. So, fair enough.
If I can finish in the top 100k, I will be absolutely delighted with that. But yeah,
I think anyone should be top 100k these days. What is it? 10 million plus players.
I know, it's bloody ridiculous. But for the amount of time I spent on this bloody game, you'd hope I'd be in the top 100,000 players. Anyway, Luke, thank you so much for joining me.
No problem.
We'll be back next week. There's games on, isn't there? We'll have to think about when we're going to do one next week. If we are
midweek games, isn't there?
Yeah, I might struggle because I've got like a work. I can't take it to Mark. I've got a work thing. So yeah, we'll have to see when we're going to do one. But yeah, we will come back to that in a bit. But yeah, good luck everyone, and we will see you next week.
See you guys.